going on, everyone? Greg Selkoe, founder, Karmaloop.com. So Mich Kapor, for those of you that don't know, founded Lotus, which is not just a kung fu style, but also a software package. Mitch has built sort of an empire, doing a lot of different things, doing a lot of charity work. So, without further ado, I give you Mich Kapor. He's gonna tell you a lot of stuff. You're gonna learn a lot of stuff. So listen to this guy. So, well, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself first, so they kind of understand who Mich Kapor is.
Back in the very early days of personal computers, I started a company right here in Cambridge, Mass. called Lotus Development Corp. that made a spreadsheet product, but it was really one of the first successful high-growth startup companies. We went like from 0 to 50 million and then $150 million. It was back in the early 80s in successive years, and to thousands of employees, and it was like a real roller coaster, interesting, life-changing experience.
Did you know Steve Jobs and Bill Gates?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I knew them when they were, early on. We came up at about the same time, and if you go all the way back, say, to the late 1970s, personal computers, they were this aberration. They were for hobbyists. Nobody took them seriously. They didn't do much. But there were a small number of people who saw the potential and really thought that
clearly not Xerox.
No, not Xerox,
yeah.
but Gates and Jobs and were among the forefront. I was in that group also.
Well, I mean, they had an article in the New York Times that said entrepreneurs are the new rock stars. And I'd like to think that's true.
Well, if entrepreneurs are the rock stars, we're the groupies.
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah, exactly.
All the groupies I ever had were 14-year-old boys named Jason with bad complexions.
Yeah, you don't get the same quality of groupies as an entrepreneur. Yeah. Although that maybe in the fashion industry they're a little better.
Fashion industry is probably better.
What would you say was the most important thing a young entrepreneur should know?
I think my biggest piece of advice would be to think about the impact that the business is going to have in all dimensions, not just the economic impact, but like the social impact. Who's it going to be good for? Who's it not going to be good for? I think if you can be both iterative and experimental, that's important. When I was in high school, I felt like I was the least popular kid that ever went to the Freeport public schools on Long Island. I was like, I was so far outside the mainstream. Yeah. That actually turned out to be useful when it came to technology, because I was able to appreciate and focus on the next big thing that was coming. Sort of being an outsider, I was able to
look at the big picture.
Turn to good advantage. So I think everybody has to start with themselves.
Yeah.
But everybody has gifts and talents, whether they're recognized or not, within the environment they're in. And I think the thing to do is to find what those talents and passions are and pursue them.
A lot of the people who are like that can start to believe what they, what society tells them, which is that, in my case, you're a bad kid or you're too different. And if you believe that stuff, then you're never going to be able to do what you want. And I think it's important and I tell this to kids all the time when I'm talking to them, is that don't listen to those people, because you can't let the haters sort of drag you down. And that's a really important thing. I think it's very empowering when people realize, wait a second, I don't have to do what these guys say. I can do my own thing. And I think the other thing too is, like, we had a shirt that said "Nerds are the new gangsters," and like the idea is that, like, being smart and being interesting, those are the people who are really shaping the world and making the big money. And I think a lot of people need to understand that, and a lot of kids need to understand it, because when you see videos, you see other things, and the stuff that's in those videos, the people who really have access to that stuff are the ones who are getting an education.